I'm going to start with Dr. Michelle for the next question. What is your vision for our communities, our shareholders, and Sealaska?
My vision for our communities and for Sealaska is that we have healthy people who can be sustainable for the next 200 years. You know, that our children have education, that our elders have housing and food, and that we know our culture and can be connected with our culture. I think we have an opportunity, especially in Southeast, for cultural tourism, where we have our own artists that sell their works and that we can teach them to do that, as well as jobs in construction, building housing for elders, and that we continue with scholarships both for vocational and for college level graduates, but that we have a place for them to come back home. That when we get them these educations, that there's a place for them if they want to come back home, that they can come back home. And the most importantly is that there's sustainability in the company, that we're making strong business choices that connect us to our cultural values as well as move us forward. Because if we aren't sustainable, then we won't be here anymore. And I want my children and my grandchildren's children to know wherever they decide to live, that they could come home. And if they wanted to come home, they would be welcomed. And that they could learn via these Zoom meetings or technology how to weave cedar or carve or draw form line. And that when they're doing that, that they can feel connected, and they could be living in France or Germany or anywhere in the world. And I think that's important. It'll draw us together and make us a stronger people. I was on a conference call earlier today, and they said just for the census, only 1% of the United States right now is saying that they're Alaska Native American Indian. We need to bring those numbers up. We need to make people say, yeah, I am Native and I am on those things. So making us count. I want to make us count, and people should know who we are, and that's what I think.
Ms. Sheesh, for your message, Doctor. We're also thankful for the census little blurb there. That's important too. So hope everybody's filling those out. I'm going to move to Mike. What is your vision for our communities, our shareholders in Sealaska?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. This is a bit of background to that question. As I was finishing college, I always wondered why my grandfather and my father didn't speak up about all the injustice that was happening to them. And it took me a lot of reflection and learning to understand that they didn't have the economic luxury to speak out, that they had jobs that were so precarious that if they spoke up for their rights and of who they were, there was a good chance that they wouldn't have jobs and they wouldn't be able to feed their families. And I, have come to recognize that the sacrifice that they've done, my grandfather and my father, for me to get an education and have economic opportunity and economic choices is so incredible. So when I look at what I think is very valuable, or what I see as a vision for Sealaska, is to provide our shareholders with that economic opportunity and that economic liberty to be able to make those kinds of choices and make those kinds of stands for themselves and stick up for themselves and for their people and for the rights that we've been, even though that we've won them in courts, we don't win them in public opinion often, right? I think that there's a larger vision for Sealaska or for Alaska Natives in general. I always look at the end of the Declaration of Independence that says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think that the most important word in there is not life, and it's not liberty, and it's not happiness. It's the and, right? My grandfather was an Indian, but when he went to Chamawa Indian school, they didn't tell him he could be an Indian and something else. He could only be an Indian. When my father was one grade away from being valedictorian at Ketchikan High School, and had a grade change so he couldn't be. They didn't want him to be an Indian and valedictorian. That wasn't allowed, right? I get to be an Indian and a business person. Angela gets to be an Indian and a doctor. Lisa gets to be an Indian and a lawyer. I think "and" is an incredible word. It's a connector, and it's something that we should strive for. And so I find that inclusion, that the "and" something else, to be a very important vision for who we are as Alaska Natives, and who we are as Sealaska shareholders, and who we are as Sealaska, the corporation, and the board of directors.
Oh, Mike, beautifully said. Morgan, what is your vision for our communities, our shareholders, and Sealaska?
Thank you for that, Michael. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. That was good. Made me think. I have thought about what does success look like for Sealaska for many years. Since I started working for Native corporations in 1995, I had to come up with my own definition because what I thought was happening wasn't working. I even wrote a paper called, dividends are not the what's successful for corporations. It's not just dividends. It can't be because it's not working. I think a lot of what would be a success would be to have relevance on our own homeland. So what does that mean, to have relevance on our homeland? It means that land ownership is not enough. At least the land ownership that we have is too small in the Tongass for that alone to provide us with what we need. We all want the same thing. We want healthy communities. We want young children to grow up in a community where they have hope, where they can see a future for themselves. They should not be less than. They should not be in a position where they don't have the same opportunities, the same dreams and wishes as other folks. That's not the way it should be. Now that's a very difficult success to reach, is to have that next generation to grow up in a healthy community and want that. But that's what I'm going for. Now Sealaska just plays one part of that. We're going to need everybody on board to get to the place we want to be. All of our entities and all of our folks, and we're going to need people outside of our native world too. We can't just think that we can, make it without understanding that we have friends and neighbors and allies and everybody who understands, and would want to be a part of that. And I can tell you, success may be, as you can tell, harder to sum up in one word, but I can actually flip it over and say, what does failure look like? I think a failure is a loss of our villages, where the village I grew up in, Yakutat, no longer exists, or there's no longer, the people who have been on that land for 10,000 years can no longer make it there in their own homeland. To me, that's failure. Failure is the loss of our land. With Sealaska, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act was about land. If we lose that land, we've lost the foundation of who we are as a place-based people. So we have some big goals. I have some personally. I have very high places for us to reach. But if we're on that path, things are better. If we're not on that path, things aren't good. And I think we are on that path. So I'm excited about the years ahead.
Ashish, Morgan, yeah. Excited to see where the future leads for our communities in your hands. Lisa, what is your vision for our communities, our shareholders in Sealaska?
First, thank you everybody, because those were very inspiring words, very, very thoughtful words. I think it would be what it has always been for me. My grandmother was a teacher, and in her life, that was the highest level a woman could go. And I think that if they were with us today, I don't know what they would be doing, because the sky was the limit to them through education, through all of the barriers that we no longer face. This time in history is very, 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 very different I don't know how to say that in the best way, but it's a challenge. And I think that we do our best when we're challenged. And so I see for my community, which means our Native people, I wish the same things in Heidelberg as I do in every other village, as I do worldwide. I want our shareholders to feel a sense of pride. I want them to say, my ancestors fought for this. My grandmother, maybe that will be me, maybe that will be Angela someday, Barb, maybe, Morgan, you'll be the China, Mike, Joe, you can all be the Chinas who were smart enough and creative enough and cared enough to believe that we could make this organization something for you to put your chin up high and to be proud about. Maybe you don't all live at home, but when you come home, it is the most beautiful feeling in the world. It's indescribable. If you have never been home, you need to make the trip home. It's a journey you need to be on. And I think that is the journey I see with Sealaska. And like I said, I've lived my journey, and it has been giving back to my community. And I struggle still with getting people to collaborate, to understand that when we sit at the table together, we are so powerful. We are so incredibly powerful. And when we don't, we are wasting our precious time, especially right now. I think Sealaska would be so wise to have a 1-year action plan and include in that your 100-year plan, because we have to address what's coming at us. So for the future and my vision, I hope my grandes, I hope my granddaughter and my grandsons and all of them will walk with their head high, and they won't live up to stereotypes that are not created by us, that our values will be inside of Sealaska, inside of the organizations, inside of education and health, so that we can collectively see the self-esteem that those of us who stay very, very cultured with the language, with the practices. I want all of our babies to feel that power. And I don't care where you live. I just want you to know that this is the goal of the organization when we move forward. It is with love, and it is with good intent. And I think about you, Angela, when you talk, because one of our goals in Heidelberg was, we don't want it to be a place where you come home to get hurt. We want it to be a place you come home to heal. And so that's part of that vision for us. And that shared vision it's everywhere. It's in every community. And collectively, I think we just have the right team. I think we're ready to go, but we do need the support of the people. We need to walk with you. We need to walk with the people, not above, not below. A leader walks with and listens. And I'm hoping that we get this message about who we really are. This is real. This is who we are. And I really do look forward to having the trust. That's the broken element. That's the thing that allows the green-eyed monster of jealousy to continue. And we have to address it. And so this group I'm among, I just feel like we could catapult it. You know, we've got all the right mixture of people, all the right thoughts, and the hearts are in the right place. So yeah, that's my vision, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you, Barb. Thank you.
Hawajah. I think, you pinpoint exactly where Sealaska is in terms of setting ourselves apart as a Haida Tlingit Tsimshian corporation versus any other Western corporation that could be out there. Because we could look exactly like any other corporation, but we don't, because our values are intertwined in everything that we do. And I'm thankful for that.